I believe that we've got to get really clear with folks that if you're going to come to work, you've got to do your own personal work so that when you come to work, we can do great work. So I'm all about making the workplace more human, but a lot of people believe making it human is bringing my worst humanness to the table.
Accept me as I am.
Yeah,
right?
and I'm like, no, you got to do your mental maturity, you got to do your work. So long answer short, every one of us has this toggle switch on our head, if you imagine that, it's a little light switch. And in any moment we can be in low self or high self, but not at the same time. It's binary. So I'm in low self, I'm venting and I'm a victim and I'm seeing the world as negative and you didn't communicate with me and you didn't consult me and I just found out about this and people are trying to set me up. Low self, I'm believing what I'm thinking and I don't realize that that thinking is just my ego.
Script.
Yeah, I'm not the one doing the thinking, I'm the one observing the thinking, but where I get caught in low self is when I start believing my own thinking. At any given minute, you can toggle into high self, which is question what you think. What do I know for sure? What could I do next to add value? Venting and self-reflection are mutually exclusive. You can't vent and self-reflect at the same time. So low self-venting, high self-reflection. So whenever you're stressed, notice that you're toggled down into this low self place.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a toggle switch.
Yeah, I love that image.
And the way to get out of ego, we call it the ego bypass. The way to get out of ego is through a personal curious question, self-reflection, or an assignment. So if Todd gives me a call and he wants to know the status of my project, okay? If I'm neutral, I'm just like, Todd, I'm a little behind, and he goes, please get it caught up. I'm like, hey, good talk. If I'm in low self, I'm like, he's trying to set me up. He's trying to get me fired. I have this whole story.
He's trying to catch me. He's catch me, not
He's caught
performing.
me, and this is going to end poorly. When I'm stressed, I just ask myself a question, what do I know for sure? Edit my story, Todd called and asked a question. What else do I know? Nothing.
I don't know anything more than you.
What could I do next that would add value? I could take his advice and get caught up in that particular area. He's given me a good tip that that's a focus. It's a way through self-reflection, what could I do to help right now? What could I do to add value? That takes us from ego into the better part of our brain, which is collaborative and innovative and all of that. If I'm struggling past the moment, right? So that's in the moment. But past the moment, I'm obsessed with the fact that he's calling me and he points out that I'm late on a project. I'm on my commute and I just can't get over it.
Right.
It's time for an assignment for self-reflection, bigger than a question. So I'm focused on all the reasons his feedback isn't true. An assignment I give people is focus on how his feedback is true. Take all that energy you got and find 10 ways his feedback is true, because there's not any feedback we can be given that's not true.
Right.
It's just our ego wants to fight it.
We block it.
And that gets you into the better part of the brain where you're like, how is this true? So even if you said to me, Sai, you're a murderer, I could say that's not true until I reflected. I'm like, I've murdered people's reputation by talking poorly about them. You know, I hate to admit it, but there's a night in college I don't remember. There could be some unsolved mystery, right? I hope the heck not, right? But it's the ability to get mentally flexible, releases the ego's clamp on you, and restores happiness immediately. So many of us keep those people as employees, but for me, your prerequisite for work is you gotta come in willing, at least willing to be toggled into a high self. Otherwise, game over. I can't work with you if you're stuck on being in a low self place.